So the FBI and the federal government's war on the American people continues. Uh, Ray Epps, who I've discussed extensively in the past, going all the way back to when Darren Beatty wrote his original expose of him for Revolver News. Um, I, I think it's pretty much 99.9% confirmed that he was a Fed, not just by the nature of his actions, um, but by incident that occurred this week in Congress, in which Congressman Thomas Massie proposed a resolution uh, that would force the Department of Justice to release whatever information they have on Ray Epps and why he hasn't been even questioned, or gone on the record regarding January 6th, since he is the only person on camera that we've seen advocating and leading people to invade and storm the Capitol building on January the 6th. Jamie Raskin, a congressman from, where is he from? Is he from New York? I can't remember now. Or he might be, or is he that guy from Nashville? Anyway, Jamie Raskin, oddly, pretended like he didn't know who Ray Epps was. He was being very overtly evasive. And as Thomas Massie points out, the January 6th committee said before that they were going to question Ray Epps and get him on the camera, but they thought it was a waste of time. They said, oh, this guy's no problem. He's a good person. This Ray Epps, he's a fine, upstanding member of the Oath Keepers. And that never happened, apparently, and Massie's following up and says, hey, we need an update on this Ray Epps guy. He should be a person of interest. And they're just completely trying to cover up his very existence. And what more confirmation could you ever expect from the feds than a cover-up? I mean, that is their way of admitting fault in any kind of a situation. The government's never going to tell us, hey, one of our agents instigated the January 6th uprising. They're not going to tell you that directly. What they're going to do is, when people discover evidence that that is the case, they're going to do everything in their power to cover it up, and they're going to be a little sloppy and not do a perfect job. And that's what's happened here with Ray Epps. They were unable to completely rake over the trail of breadcrumbs leading to Ray Epps' guilt. And so all they have left at this point is just to act like they've never heard of him and that he doesn't exist. I wouldn't be surprised if in due time Ray Epps goes the way of Jeffrey Epstein. Ray Epps outlived his usefulness on January the 7th, 2021. And ever since then, he's been living on borrowed time, in my opinion. Now, I don't want to see anything bad happen to Ray Epps. I would very much like for him to come forward and just say whatever he knows, because I think he certainly knows something. I'm not going to assert that he was a part of any kind of grand plot, although that certainly looks to be the case. Let's just hear his side of the story, and let's hear the truth. But I don't think we're ever going to get that chance. And even if he wanted to, I don't think Ray Epps would get that chance. I think there's a distinct possibility that Ray Epps does not survive into the next administration. Because given everything we've seen, Ray Epps is someone who might need immunity. And that immunity possibly could be granted by a future Republican administration who was interested in revealing the truth about January the 6th. But there are so many people standing between that who have the ability to silence Ray Epps once and for all that I don't think that this will ever be allowed to happen. First of all, you would need an attorney general in the Department of Justice who wants this to happen, who wants the truth about Ray Epps and what he knows to be revealed. Given Trump's track record of appointing William Barr, a deep state cover-up specialist, to be the Attorney General in his last White House administration. If Trump is indeed the next Republican president, I'm not going to hold my breath. Second of all, people below the Attorney General, FBI bureaucrats, could head this off at the pass, and I'm sure they have ways of taking out Ray Epps. And that's assuming that they don't do something before the next administration is inaugurated. We have the lame duck period in between elections and the inauguration, and during that period, I think that Ray Epps would be walking around with a target on his back. And I assume at this point he's probably under heavy surveillance already. He's the media checked in with Ray Epps. He was living in I think it was a fifth wheel camper traveling around the country. So the guy's on the run. They told him, hey, you're not going to be spotted. You're gonna go underground, and we're gonna do this media piece so that as a making you hold up a newspaper with today's date to try and prove, hey, look, he's alive, but nothing more than that. For now, I think it would be too obvious for them if they just took him out. But during the lame duck period, when there is a threat that the truth about whatever Ray Epps knows could be exposed, I could very well see them arresting him on trumped-up charges and Ray Epps doing away with himself in prison. Yes, it's not a pleasant thought. It's not something that I wish to see. I think it would be very bad, actually, because the truth would die with him. But it's the way these stories tend to play out. It's one reason why there's really no advantage to selling out your soul to these people, because you're either going to get taken. You run the risk, if you're a good person in America, of just getting taken out by the deep state in a straightforward way. They don't like who you are. They trump up some charges. They put you away so that you're no longer a threat. But if you work for them, if you sell your soul to them, they'll throw you away just the same once you've outlived your usefulness. If there's one thing that the U.S. government and the permanent bureaucracy do not value, it's human life. Look at the people of Iraq, and you tell me, does the United States federal government value human life in the abstract? And I won't even get started on abortions. Speaking of abortions, though, even though I just said I won't even get started on abortions, there's this guy in Philadelphia who was just raided by, the news reports are saying 24 to 30 FBI agents who came in, busted down his door in the middle of the night, hauled him out in handcuffs in front of his wife and kids. The usual routine that they do with political enemies. And what is he being charged with? Well, he's being charged with, I guess, shoving a Planned Parenthood volunteer. So the story goes, there was some kind of verbal altercation. This guy is one of these people who goes out and stands in front of abortion clinics and tries to convince the women walking in to change their mind. And people usually do this in groups. This guy, I guess, was with his son and I guess some other people. The son got into a verbal altercation with not a paid staff member who's described as a Planned Parenthood volunteer, and the dad came up and shoved the guy. And for this act, the DOJ is charging him with a crime that I believe a little scratchy on this. I didn't plan on talking about this. I planned on just talking about Ray Epps, so I didn't brush up on this, forgive me. But I think it carries up to 11 years in prison, which I hesitate because 11 years is kind of a weird number. And considering this guy's a political enemy, he'll probably get somewhat close to the maximum sentence, I would imagine. And the crime has something to do, I think, with there's actually some statute about obstructing an abortion. And so for shoving some baby killer, this guy is the one who's going to prison. I mean, he's trying to convince people not to murder children. And in the heat of the moment, he shoves one of them. And the guy who's trying to advocate against the killing, is the one who gets sent to prison for over a decade in our society. If this ain't hell, I don't know where the hell we are. But this guy, appropriately, is being treated as a heretic. He obstructed the sacred ritual of sacrificing unborn children to Moloch. And he won't be the last. The DOJ clearly is focused heavily on political prosecutions. They've always happened in this country, make no mistake. This is nothing new. But they're becoming much more brazen, and they're broadening the net of who is considered an enemy of the state. Historically, prosecutions were only weaponized against enemies of the bipartisan political class. So, anti-war activists, real socialists, anti-government libertarians, your sovereign citizen types, self-reliant independent communities like the Branch Davidians. Before, as long as you operated within the bipartisan consensus and you argued sort of within the Overton window, you were left alone by the DOJ. If you strayed outside of that, well then you ran the risk of facing a political prosecution. But now, the Biden administration and the permanent bureaucracy have shrunk the Overton window to completely exclude the establishment right. And I don't want to call pro-life people like establishment. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not like Mitch McConnell's a big pro-life champion, but it was always accepted that being pro-life was a part of mainstream Republican politics. This is not a fringe movement. This is very much one of the core planks of the mainstream American right. But now even that is enough to get you put away in prison and treated like an enemy of the state. And so the only people now who are safe from political prosecution really are the shitlibs. So I have to say it's quite scary. The rate at which things are escalating are not good. It's not good at all. I'd like to think that where I am, someone who is pretty well unplugged from politics, I would like to think I'm no threat to these people. I have a very small YouTube channel. I get a handful of viewers. I'd like to think that I'm 100% safe from this sort of stuff. But when I look at this guy is just a totally normal activist. He's not like some high-profile figure. I guess he does lead a group. But again, there's countless groups like this across the country. He organizes people, they go sit in front of abortion clinics, and they beg the women to spare their child's lives. And because of that, this guy is having his life destroyed and his family split up. So if they go over to a guy like this, who won't they go after? I mean, who's too small for these folks to go after? And this wasn't a minor thing. This wasn't like, okay, they sent a cop and they arrest him. No, they made a big deal out of this. They sent over 20 FBI jackbooted thugs to break down his door on, some kind of pre-dawn raid type of thing. A couple of years ago, you had to be Roger Stone to get that treatment. But I guess at this point, it is small enough that you can still look at it as a purely random thing, like getting struck by lightning. Because what they do want, the kind of effect they're going for here, is to terrorize people. They want ordinary people to worry, oh my God, am I next? Will I, commit an act of jaywalking and then be charged with treason because I liked a Trump tweet? That's the level of insanity we're dealing with now. And if they just pick off a few random people like this, the idea is, I think, for that to have a chilling effect. Make people duck and hide behind the nearest bush, and less people will poke their head up, and therefore, every time someone does, then they can just take them out and pick them off one by one. Whereas if everyone is milling about openly expressing their opinions, expressing opinions that are outside of the new shitlib Overton window, then it becomes very hard for them to just pick people off individually without it, just seeming like they're terrorizing the local population. So in closing, I will say, without a hint of hyperbole or irony, these people want your kids dead before they even make it out of the womb. And if they fail in killing them at that stage, they want you dead so that they can then poison your born children. They want to kill your unborn children, and they want to poison, both mentally and chemically, your born children. That is, not just the Democratic Party platform. That is the entire raison d'etre of the federal government. And for that matter, the vast majority of local governments. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow, hopefully, with results from the Italian election that is going on today.